بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا المرسلين والحمد لله Rabbil Alameen. Amma ba'd. My dear respected brothers and elders and sisters in Islam, we greet you with the greetings instructed to us. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We thank Allah who has gathered and guided us here up to this very moment where we develop the deepest wisdom available to any man. And that is the wisdom to put our forehead on the ground in sajda to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. I bear witness and testify, if it is my last act, there is no one worthy of worship except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There is no one worthy of our praise except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He begets not, nor is he begotten, and there is none comparable unto him. We also testify that 1400 years ago a man, a human being named Muhammad ibn Abdullah, came to this earth with the last and final revelation of Almighty God. We know this revelation today is the Holy Quran, and it is free of any deviation, any distortion, any departure from the truth. We say these things in English, and then we confirm these things in Arabic when we say La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, which is the constitution that binds man to God, and therefore the constitution that binds man to man. As to what follows, my respected brothers and elders, this week we saw an interesting thing happen in the Muslim world. We saw elections. Elections happen in Egypt. Now, it was not the only time that elections have happened in the Muslim world, so it bears wondering why this khatib would talk about elections as though they were something of an anomaly. The elections this time in Egypt were somewhat interesting because for the first time in a long time in Egypt and many other Muslim countries, there was the possibility that the votes might actually mean something. Well, there was the small matter, it being first days and early days, of the army and others deciding to disqualify some of the candidates because they didn't like them very much. But even withstanding that particular negative outcome, for the first time, one might not know, going into the ballot box, that one was in effect going to affirm 98 support for the fearless and great leader Hosni Mubarak coming out of the ballot box. And so in this sense, the election represented perhaps something interesting, some element of uncertainty about the future direction of one particular great Muslim nation, which is going through hard times. And so with the subject being elections this week, I thought I would spend some time talking about what elections and government and leadership should be about in the Muslim world, and what we have lost in all of the Muslim world, that is the Sunnah of Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Many people understand the Sunnah of Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam to be about small things. How one speaks to somebody, how one shakes someone else's hand, how one conducts himself in a group of people. It is the Sunnah, if you like, of little ideas. And if we look around the Muslim world that has been under colonial domination for a long period of time, and if we look under the Muslim world, even in North America and other places, most of the time we hear a lot about the Sunnah of little ideas. Doesn't mean that they're wrong. It's important to know how to shake someone's hand. It's important to speak politely to people. It's important to give 2.5% of your wealth, at least, to the poor. These are important things. But ultimately, they are individual ideas that apply to individual people. And so in that sense, respectfully, I call them the Sunnah of little ideas. But today's khutbah is about something different, which interestingly enough is the main reason why Islam grew. And that is the Sunnah of big ideas. And big ideas are what Muslim people have stopped talking about, both at the minbar, at the ballot box, in the school system, and at home with their families. Big ideas are the things that Prophet Muhammad ﷺ did almost immediately when he understood the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to him. And big ideas, Jazakallah khair, my apologies. And big ideas are what the Ummah, for some reason, has abandoned. So it is the hope of the Khatib that in talking about big ideas, we begin to actually do those ideas. For it is said within the Holy Quran that he who has knowledge and doesn't act on it is like he who has treasure and doesn't spend it in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May God save us from this particular state. The first and big idea in Islam, embodied in Islam, is the value of human life, or the equality of human life in the eyes of God. The biggest idea in Islam is that all life counts. And I want to tell you a little story that occurred just yesterday to me in a Walmart, which brought this home to me and inspired this particular sunnah. This particular aspect of Islam reminded me in a way that I probably needed to be reminded. So I'm in a Walmart for the same reason most people are at a Walmart, to buy goods at a cheap price. And I'm walking up the aisle of the Walmart, and this particular Walmart has changed its layout. They're putting a supermarket in the Walmart. So you know, if you've ever been to a Walmart, it's a big, big store, many, many products. And unless you live in that store every day, you can't find what you're looking for all the time. So I look around, seeing, okay, I'm trying to buy some, I guess it was a water filter. I'm trying to buy a water filter, and there are 4 people with the Walmart uniform, and 3 of them are busy. One of them is sweeping the floor with a mop. The other 3 are talking. So I don't know why nobody's talking to this gentleman with the mop. So I come to him, and then I see his face, and I can see from his face that he was a little mentally slow. You know, his eyes had the characteristics of a brother in humanity who had some form of slower mental situation. And then I thought to myself, Shaitan had entered my heart, and I thought to myself, well, maybe I should wait and ask one of these other, you know, better-looking people who were other people we're talking to. But then I thought, you know what, this person seems so excited, and before I could say anything, God took the decision away from my hand. And the man says, can I help you? Nobody else had asked this question. He said, can I help you? I said, yes. And then before I could say anything, he said, my name is Joseph. I said, okay, Joseph. I said, Joseph, I know this is a really big store, but I was wondering if you could show me where there's a Brita water filter. Before I could say anything, he said, I know. And he turned around, and I was in the opposite end of the store. And he ran. And I had to take my cart and run after him. He was running. He was so excited that somebody asked him a question. And he ran from one aisle, next aisle, third aisle. And he went to the maze, which, well, as Allah is my witness, I could have walked the whole store. I would never have found it. And he took me to the exact spot, and he grabbed the water filters at the best price, joy in his face. Out of 64,000 products, he found the one product I wanted. He put it in my shopping cart, and he looked at me, and he said, what's your name? I said, my name is Kabir. He said, did I help you? I said, yes. Then he looked at me straight in the eyes, and he said, am I special? And I said, yes, for sure, Joseph, you are very special to know this whole store. And then he put his arms around me and gave me a hug. He was so happy, and he ran back to his mop. Wallahi, I thought in that moment I should do 2 rakats sajda on the ground and ask God for forgiveness for what had entered my mind and entered my heart. I dismissed this person. I thought, you know, this is a big store. He doesn't look like, you know, he could be a very smart person. Most of the people, you ask something in a store, they wave their hand, they tell you, oh, maybe it's somewhere over here. Out of 64,000 products in a store, the man ran to the opposite end of the store, puts it on the place, makes sure I'm happy, asks for my name, and was so happy to serve a fellow human being. You know, he's making probably minimum wage, if that. Was so happy that I had found what I was looking for that he gave me a hug. Wallahi, I thought at that moment, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala should take both our lives at that point, maybe I would beg for this man's heart, and he would beg for nothing from me. The value of human life, the value of all human life, was taught to us by our messenger, Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. The value of human life was that we don't know what's in somebody's heart. Maybe one is good looking, maybe one is strong, maybe one has all the characteristics that we might think, oh yeah, this person is for sure the best among people. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveals himself in strange places and strange times. Aisle 6, water filters, Walmart. I found Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reminding me that La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah means we don't know. We don't know who Allah has chosen to be the best among us, except by what is in somebody's heart. We don't know whether that person who speaks the best might have the worst character, might be jealous, might be cruel, might be mean. And we don't know whether somebody who has a mop in his hand might have so much love in his heart that he could fill a whole store with what is good in him. And that is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made it our business to care about every human life. That is why the taking of human life is a very serious thing. That is why suicide is forbidden in Islam. That's why euthanasia is not allowed in Islam. That's why abortion is something we look at unless the woman's life is in danger. We do not allow. That is why the zakat encourages us to make sure that the poor have something to eat. That's why we come to this khutbah once every week At least. So at a minimum, everyone in the community meets everybody in the community. And everyone at the community has a chance to talk about what's going on in it. The biggest idea in Islam is the equality of human life. And we now live in a society, both in the so-called Muslim world and in the so-called Western world, where human life is being reduced to a series of numbers. Maybe it's how much money you have, maybe it's the IQ you have, maybe it's your height, your weight. Human beings are increasingly being treated as though they are simply business decisions. I have no doubt in my mind, having experienced what I experienced yesterday, that this fellow Joseph knows that people look down on him. He knows that they don't choose him. He may not know exactly how much money less he's getting than everybody else, but he probably knows that he has to work a very long time to afford one of the products even in that store, and other people don't. And we think that because this person is in this situation, that these things don't matter. And as a result, our society has reached a point where people are starting to eat each other. Not necessarily in a physical fashion, but in economic fashion. And so people prey on each other. So people who have money take it from people who don't because they have no choice. I found out the other day that the second biggest cause of debt in North America is student loans after houses. So other than a roof over your head, anybody who wants to get an education, the people who have money suck the blood out of that poor guy or gal or person who's trying to better himself. They're over $1.5 trillion, I think it was. I think that's the number in student debt. So if somebody wants to get an education or learn something, now we're saying that money is everything. We treat that as an opportunity to take advantage of someone when he has no choices. Now when someone wants to put a roof over his head, we treat it as an opportunity to charge him 4 times more for his house because of a mortgage. We don't look at each other as human beings and say everybody has a right to learn something. Everybody has a right to have a house over his head. Everybody has a right to some form of health care, because any of us could be sick at any point in time. Instead, today, we say, oh, you know what? That's a good market. That's a good thing for somebody to take advantage of somebody else, because he has the temporary upper hand. The big idea in Islam that follows from all of us have value as human life is that all of us have some stake in the life of another. And so Islam created this concept of a Baitul Mal, a central treasury where basic needs of people could be looked for. Zakat was part of the public investing in itself. Sadaqah was part of making each individual person to look out for people that the state might miss because they were too proud to ask for something, or maybe like Joseph, they wouldn't even know what to ask for, even though they needed it. But on top of that, we had a Baitul Mal, a treasury that was very, very transparent in terms of what was spent. And any Muslim group anywhere can establish a Baitul Mal. You could be here in North America. I've said here in many occasions that there are 100,000 families of Muslim nature in Toronto, at least with $10,000 in disposable assets, at least. And that's $1 billion. And we have no Baitul Mal. You know why? Because we don't see it. We don't see it as within our right to fix what's wrong with the world. We don't see what happens to Joseph as an attack on Islam. You say, what do you mean? He's not even Muslim. When something is done wrong to anybody in humanity, something is done wrong to Islam. Because Islam came to lift up all of humanity. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said to the Prophet, upon whom be peace, that our job as Muslims was to forbid what was wrong and enjoin what is right. It didn't say forbid what is wrong only when it happens to Muslim people. Enjoin what is right only if it affects Muslim people. It didn't say that. He said forbid what is wrong and enjoin what is right. Actually, the opposite order. Enjoin what is right and forbid what is wrong. Astaghfirullah. Same two thoughts, but it's important. When anything is good for any human being, the Muslim should be at the forefront of promoting it.